So let's talk about California, because there is a huge contradiction happening there right now. On one hand, you have people leaving the state in droves, trying to escape some of the highest living costs in the country. But at the very same time, voters just rejected a plan to raise the minimum wage. It's a real puzzle, and it gets right to the heart of the anxieties in the Golden State. Let's dig in. First, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this exodus. In 2025 alone, the state had a net loss of 216,000 people. That's a massive number. It means way more people packed up and left than moved in. This isn't just a small trend, it's a major demographic shift. And get this has been going on for 6 years straight. It's not a blip. What might have seemed like a trickle a few years ago has turned into a steady flood of people heading for the exit. It really makes you wonder about the state's future. So, what's actually pushing them away? Well, no big surprise, the number one driver is the insane cost of housing. Just look at this. In 2026, the median home price in California shot past $900,000. Now, compare that to a place like Texas, where a ton of Californians are moving. The median there, just $350,000. That gap isn't just a number on a chart. For a family, that is absolutely life-changing. And it's not just about buying a house. We also have to talk about taxes. California has the highest top state income tax rate in the entire nation at 13.3%. Meanwhile, a lot of the states people are escaping to, think Texas, Nevada, Florida, they have zero state income tax. That can mean thousands of extra dollars in your pocket every single year. Okay, so this brings us to the big puzzle. With costs this high, you'd think people would be jumping at the chance to give lower wage workers a raise, right? But they didn't. To really get why, we need to look at exactly what they were voting on. First, a quick civics lesson. In California, regular citizens can actually propose and vote on laws themselves. It's called a ballot initiative, a form of direct democracy. And that's exactly how this whole minimum wage question ended up in the hands of the voters. The proposal was called Proposition 32, and the idea behind it was pretty straightforward. Let's raise the statewide minimum wage from $16 an hour up to $18 an hour over a couple of years. Now, the plan wasn't to just flip a switch overnight. It was designed to be gradual, to give businesses some time to adjust. As you can see, bigger companies would have to hit that $18 mark in 2025, while smaller businesses would get an extra year to catch up, hitting the full amount in 2026. And you can bet this proposal set off a huge debate. It really became this epic clash between two very powerful ideas: the crushing cost of living for workers versus the rising cost of doing business for employers. So on one side, you had supporters, like the investor Joe Sandberg, who actually filed the initiative. Their argument was simple. Look, everything is getting more expensive by the day, but paychecks just haven't kept up. This was a direct, common-sense way to help the people who are struggling the most to get by. But then, on the other side, you had business groups like the California Chamber of Commerce, and they were sounding the alarm. They warned that forcing businesses to pay more would create this dangerous ripple effect. They'd have to raise prices, or cut hours, or even lay people off. And that, they argued, would end up hurting the very workers the law was supposed to help. Now get this. Just look at the money involved in this fight. The Yes on 32 campaign outspent the opposition by a massive margin. We're talking nearly $12 million compared to just over $800,000 for the no side. With that kind of cash advantage, you'd think it would be a slam dunk, right? Well, not so fast. After all the ads, all the arguments, and all those millions of dollars, what did the people of California actually decide? It was defeated. And look how incredibly close it was. A margin of less than 1.5%. The state was almost perfectly split right down the middle. This wasn't a rejection. It was a razor-thin verdict that just screams uncertainty. So to understand why it failed, you have to look at the other numbers that were squeezing Californians' wallets. At the same time, the cost of just keeping a roof over your head in a place like LA was still climbing, up 3% from the year before. People were feeling that constant pressure from rent and mortgages. And it wasn't just housing. The price of food was going up right there with it, climbing 3.1%. So you can see the dilemma, right? A higher wage sounds great, but the fear that businesses would just pass those costs along, making your grocery bill even more expensive, that was very real for a lot of voters. And that brings us right back to the big picture. This vote on Prop 32 wasn't just about a number, $18 an hour. It was a perfect snapshot of the core dilemma that California is wrestling with today. So let's just lay it all out. You have this brutal cost of living that's literally forcing people to leave. You have a direct attempt to fix it by raising wages, and it fails. And at the very heart of that failure is this deep-seated fear among voters that the cure might actually make the disease of inflation even worse. There's just no consensus on how to solve the problem. Which leaves us with the ultimate question for California's future. That razor-thin vote shows that the old answers aren't working for a huge chunk of the population. So will California find some new creative way to tackle this affordability crisis? Or is this exodus, all these moving trucks rolling out of the state, simply the new normal?